episode. Today is May 18th, 2025. This is our monthly grief transformation awareness workshop, group, whatever we want to call it. I want to welcome new people who are new to this because there's a lot of you who are new, which we'll do like a little introduction. We'll kind of do it backwards where towards the end, if you want to share, you certainly don't have to share what led you to this group today. Just a brief background with this history of this group. It was started 2 years ago in June, I think. Unless it was 3 years ago. Gosh, I'm losing track of time, but it was in June. And I often wondered why it took me so long, because I've been working with people who are grieving since 2005-ish. Why it took me that long to start something like this, but it never dawned on me to like do this as a group thing until fairly recently. So every month is different. There's no set template per se. It's just a good opportunity, I think, to give time and space to grief. And the grief that we're referring to in this context is not just grief that is caused from experiencing a death of a loved one, although, of course, that's the primary one because of the nature of my work. Obviously, I'm meeting and seeing a lot of people who are grieving from death. But as I look at grief every day, often, I have seen grief is such a powerful emotion, and it's coming from not just death. It's coming from life. It's coming from the loss of identity, the loss of ourselves, the loss of friendships, the loss of who we thought we are, who we thought the world was, betrayal, um, when you're forced to change a job, when you're retiring. Like, it doesn't always have to be even a negative event that causes grief, but we're grieving all the time. And in my opinion and my observation, we really only seem to acknowledge, we as a collective society, only seem to acknowledge grief when it's from the death of a loved one. And even then, it's very glazed over. And it's really not deeply felt, talked about, experienced, especially in the West, especially, I mean, my of course, my only experience is in the United States, but um, we're very strange, in my opinion, about how we handle grief. And people are really super uncomfortable with it, whether it's their own or dealing with someone else's. So what gets me thinking is that this energy of grief is so pervasive. There's not a human being on the planet that hasn't experienced grief in some way, shape, or form, but we kind of only put it in the context of when someone dies. That's intriguing to me. It's intriguing to me for a number of reasons, one of which I'll share in a moment. But it's intriguing that along the way, we don't even realize we're grieving. And a lot of times it takes for ourselves the death of someone to sort of open up the Pandora's box of all the grief we've ever experienced. And so, on that note, I really have become always super, super intrigued with grief. I grew up in a home that was grieving since I can remember because my brother died young and the whole family never recovered from that. So, like, I was cooked in grief, which sounds insane. But fortunately, it was very open. It was very talked about. We could express, fortunately. So I'm plugged into grief. What I think is pretty amazing about this energy of grief, not that anyone in their right mind would ask, um, is that grief is the single most powerful energy we have to help us make big changes. It is the transformational energy force in our life. And I've seen that since I'm 3. And I've known that. At 3, I wouldn't have said it that way, but I was raised with that awareness. That doesn't mean everyone transforms beautifully, but when it's properly channeled, grief can become the most powerful force for personal change. And so that's why I've come to love it. And when I say I love it, it's 1000% clear, and I'm stating this to the universe. When I say I love grief, it's not like I'm like, gosh, I can't wait for something to completely annihilate me so that I change and grow. Like nobody in their right mind would say they want grief in order to change. Not, I love grief. I understand grief. I have a different viewpoint of grief. I see it as powerful. I'm still never going to ask for it. I'm never going to say in the middle, when I'm down on my knees, I'm not going to say, yes, this is so hard, but I know it's going to be great. There's no way I would say that. And yet I know it is. So I want to preface that because I'm certainly not expecting anyone to lean into grief in a positive way. Quite the opposite. It's sort of like let grief be the wave that you ride in order to get to this state of transformation. So the group is about grief, but it's all the griefs. And sometimes we share specifically today, actually, we're going to do a little bit of this. We'll share like, what are we grieving? And I'll put it in a specific context. But you'll see that one grief pops the lid off of all of them. So everything I see about grief, everything I read about grief, it always says that it needs to be felt. It needs to be shared. It needs to be experienced. And I 1000% agree with that. And that's the problem. That's the thing. It's like, I don't want to. I don't want to feel it. We are afraid to feel it because it, we're afraid it's going to end us, quite literally. It's like a tsunami. So it's this crazy paradox of no one's going to ask for it. No one should ask for it. And yet it's the most powerful thing that forces you to change. And it needs to be felt, expressed, and listened to. And yet it's an energy that freezes us a lot of times. So it completely like just paralyzes us. So there's so much here. There's so much to talk about. And today, well, yeah, I'll set this up and then we'll do a little bit of a centering exercise. Then we'll come back. Um, for those of you who know, I'm writing a book about grief. It's the next book. It's written. Now I just have to edit it. And writing this book was the most enjoyable thing I've ever done, which is blowing my mind because my first book, I hated every minute of writing it. I kept writing it to get it done, to say that I wrote a book, to move on. This I didn't want to end because it really sums up my life and it sums up my work in a way that I think is more tangible than ever. And it really got me to lean into and really dissect the different stages of grief. And over the next few months, I'm going to start working on the different phases that I've I'll say I coined them, even though that sounds arrogant, I feel, but what I named the different stages based on my observation. So we're going to go on phase 1 today, maybe into phase 2, to kind of like learn how to look at your grief as a process, not a linear process, but more of a spiraling process, spiraling up, spiraling down, same way. And then we're going to write about it, and hopefully writing about it will help you kind of acknowledge it and feel it in a way that's appropriate for you for today. So that's kind of our work for this beautiful morning. You're all brave for attending this, by the way, because grief is powerful, but grief is hard. That's why it's so powerful. So I'm going to let all those words, which are a lot of words, just sort of settle into yourselves. And then we'll take a moment to just sort of experience a centering or a recentering. You can close your eyes or keep them open, whatever feels better for you. And then just go ahead and take one deep centering breath. And just notice what it feels like to breathe. Notice the sensation of breath. And when you're observing your breath, try to allow it to stay as an observation versus a judgment. As we're getting centered, just feel your seat beneath you. And bring to your awareness sort of what led you here today. And then bring in compassion for yourself. You're human. Bring in compassion for that human experience that we all share. We share it differently. And compassion is a little bit different than feeling sorry for, although you can absolutely experience feeling sorry for yourself and your experiences. I look at compassion as maybe a level up from feeling sorry, where compassion is really genuinely acknowledging just the kind of the emotional insanity of it all, of it being human. And compassion can bring a level of levity where when we feel sorry for ourselves, which there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I know when I'm feeling sorry for myself, it keeps me kind of low in that vibe where compassion kind of brings it up a level. What I know for all of you is whatever your reason for being here today, you are undoubtedly in the midst of major inner changes. And these inner changes can lead you to a new layer of yourself, a more authentic, deeper self. And that's what the energy of grief does. It burns through the layers of ourselves that are no longer relevant. And that's not said to make you feel better, it's just sort of said to be stated. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I hope everyone has, and don't force yourself to open your eyes before you're ready, but I'll keep talking. Hopefully, everybody has paper or journal to write on or jot notes on. And in this book that I'm writing, I identified through my own personal experiences, and then, of course, mostly from observing all of you over 20 years' time of seeing the kind of process and what happens during grief. I created these different, not created, I observed these different phases that we go through in the grief journey. And these are different than Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, although I do think it works nicely with her stages. If any of you are familiar, she is the guru of grief and death and dying. Um, and so I'm going to read a little bit from the book, and we're going to talk about probably mostly the first stage today, because all of you have this, what I'm going to explain. So as I'm reading, I want you to kind of think about your own grief journey, why you're here today. And there might be an original thing, or there might be like ripple effect things, which will make more sense in a moment. But I'm calling it grief alchemy, the stages of transformation, because that's what it is. So I'm going to read a little bit, and then we're going to actually have an exercise to follow. So, grief is not linear. It does not move in a straight line, nor does it follow a schedule. It is a force, an undeniable gravitational pull that moves through you, reshaping everything in its wake. The process is not about moving on or getting over it. It's about transformation. Grief does not simply take, it remakes. While no two journeys are the same, grief tends to move through recognizable phases, not steps, not rigid milestones, but energetic shifts that pull you deeper, that dissolve you, that press you forward, and eventually they guide you into something new. These are not instructions, they are waypoints. If you recognize yourself in one, know that you are not stuck. If you feel like you're circling back to another phase, know that you are not failing. This is how grief moves, spiraling, folding back, propelling forward, all at once. And the first stage is what I'm calling the drop. And the drop is the moment that changes everything. The drop is the fall, the event, the rupture. It's the moment when everything you thought you knew is no longer true. Sometimes it's instant, in a phone call, an accident, a truth revealed in a single breath. Other times it's slow, a creeping realization, an unraveling, the slow motion collapse of something you thought would last. Regardless of how it happens, the drop is disorienting. It does not just take something away, it breaks the reality you were living in. You are in free fall now, and there is no way to unsee what you have seen. And as I read that, I want you to think of your drop. It might not be the drop, but a drop. And I want you to write a little bit about whatever comes to mind for you. It might be the most recent or it might be the earliest one. It doesn't matter what comes up for you. But write about your moment of the drop. And keep writing if you're writing. Notice how the mind is able to say the drop, and let the mind express the drop, but also start sinking into your body to feel what it feels like to write about a drop or the drop. In other words, pay attention to your body. And sometimes noticing how you feel is noticing how you can't feel. That's a feeling. And then I want you to just finish up this sentence if you're still writing. We'll just sit in your body. Sounds like a funny thing to say, but particularly with grief, we often leave our body because it's too much. That actually goes into the second stage, but we'll stay with the first. So we want to kind of, as much as possible, stay in the body. And if this drop that you just wrote about, if the energy of that event or events could reside somewhere in your body, if it had like a, you know, if you have a cabinet and you put your Q-tips in that space and you put cotton balls in that space, and or you might just kind of shove everything in the closet, whatever your style is. If you were a cabinet, a drawer, where in your body are you storing grief? You can visualize this a few ways. You can imagine yourself as a cabinet or drawer and visualize yourself stuffing the emotion of grief. And just let your imagination do its thing and find where in your body this grief is being stored. There's no right or wrong to this. So just drop in, just using your imagination. And then if you can, imagine that that energy of grief has either a shape or form or texture. And imagine that shape, that form, that texture being stored in your body. And it might be all over. It might be in one spot. There's no right or wrong. And I want you to visualize best you can this energy residing and storing in your body. See it and feel it. Imagine it as intensely as you possibly can. Then imagine that with your breath, just your breath, as you breathe in deeply, with every breath that you breathe in, whether you breathe in through your nose or breathe in through your mouth, whatever feels better to your body, imagine that that breath goes to the energy of grief and it starts to either soften it, lessen it, smooth it, dissolve it, even if it's one molecule less. That's progress. Imagine the breath going in, touching the grief, and starting to break it up just a bit. And then your exhale is that grief being released out of your body. And we're only focusing on the energy of the grief in the body and not what the brain is telling you about it. Breathe in to break it up. Breathe out to expel it. Take even deeper, more exaggerated breaths. Notice when the brain wants to come in and fill in the blanks. The brain wants to remind you. Just notice that and then go back into just the breath and the energy in the body, not to the story or the why or the event. Just take another 30 seconds breathing into this grief. It's not necessarily pleasant. Every inhale, it's touching the energy and breaking it down, moving it. And if emotion is coming up, that's quote unquote good. That doesn't mean you have to have emotion come up. Bring in the awareness of compassion for the human you are. When you feel ready, and only when you feel ready, if you need to, you can take a moment to journal anything that stood out to you, either right where the grief is stored in your body and what it looks like. How does breathing feel? Do a little sharing if you want to. Nobody's forced to share anything. But before we do that, because grief is an energy in the body, we want to, we want it moved. We don't necessarily need it to be away, but we want it moving through the body versus kind of isolated or stuck in one area. So for those of you who have taken ETA with me, which I don't think anybody in here has, um, other than Eileen. So if this grief, if you could posture how this grief makes your body feel, the energy, I want you to make that posture with your body. So does that make sense? I don't want to give an example because I don't want to. Well, let's do it the opposite very quickly. If I said you're feeling joyous and joyful and filled with excitement and just pure joy, if your body could take a posture to represent what the energy of joy feels like, what would your body want to do? And then make that posture. Yes, on camera. Thank you, Donna. So hold that, Donna, and everyone else. What posture would joy be in your body? And then make that posture and hold that posture. Hold it, hold it, hold it. And then hold your posture, but then look at the screen and see that nobody told anybody to smile, to look up or have an upward gaze. No one said to put your arms out. No one told you to expand yourself, but that's what you did. And the reason for that is because that's how joy moves through the body. It's an expansive energy field. And any emotion that we consider favorable or positive, but I don't like the word positive because emotions aren't negative, meaning they're not bad. I like to put emotions in categories of favorable and less favorable, things we want to feel and things we don't want to feel. So it's not positive and negative, good and bad. It's just, I don't want to feel lazy today. That's not bad, but using the words positive and negative makes us feel like certain emotions are bad to feel. It's just that we don't want to feel them. So the energy of joy expands. Now, looking back over your drop and your notes and your grief in your body, if your body could make a posture about how that feels, posture your body in a way that it shows you how you feel, and then hold that posture. And then hold your posture, but just look up at the screen. It's a little harder to look up, but no one expanded. No one is like, oh, yes, grief. This is great. Everyone either slinked back, I have no energy, can't deal. You shrunk or collapsed or contracted, looked down, covered your head. Like that's because the energy of grief, that's what it does. It makes us contract. So when we're experiencing grief, yes, there is an event and a reason to feel this way. Something caused the energy to contract. But we can't ever change that event. And that's kind of one of those no shit, Deb. That's why I'm here. That's what I want to change. But because we can't change the event, we have to look at how the energy in our body is residing because it's the energy that's bothering us. In addition to the event, we can't change the event, but we can move the energy in our body. And how do we do that? Basically, this is a workshop I used to teach all the time, called energy transformation awareness. It comes out of that. But to move the energy of grief in your body, we're not saying to solve it, because we can't. We can't solve the event, but we can do something with the energy and where it resides in our body. So I want you to make the posture of grief again for yourself and really feel it, holding on to that experience that you wrote about, and hold the posture and maybe even exaggerate it, maybe even make it tighter in the body until your body does not want to hold that posture. Hold it tighter and tighter and more intensely, the posture of grief. Let your body have this. This is the constriction that grief is causing in your body. And it's perfectly okay. And then I want you to think of an opposite posture to this one for you. And slowly move into the opposite posture of this. You don't have to feel the feeling of the opposite posture. That's the cool thing about energy. And then I want you to move back to your grief posture. And then back to the opposite. And slowly rock between both in your own time. Just move from the grief to the opposite. Back to the grief, back to the opposite. As you're moving back and forth in your own time and what feels right to stay and hold, I want you to find a midpoint posture. Posture that's neither the grief, neither the opposite, just the midpoint of the two. And then in your imagination, check on that energy of grief that you were storing earlier. Check on it. And just observe it. Is it less dense, less intense? Is it smaller? Is it larger? Just observe. I don't know is an answer to. And just check in on your sensation of feeling in this moment. And it's very tricky because the mind always wants to bring us back to the event, which I'm calling the story of why, the drop essentially of what you're feeling, the why, the reason. And there's a time and a place to go back to that for sure. But when we're talking about energy, energy is present in the now. And when we keep bringing ourselves back to an event we can't change, that's when we hold the energy of this grief the tightest in the now without recognizing that it's shifted and moved. Shifting and move doesn't mean it's better. Everything's better. That's not what we're talking about. But we want to catch kind of the shifting of the energy in our body. The brain doesn't let us do that. Only the body does. So by posturing the grief or whatever you're feeling, you could be feeling furious because your coworker didn't show up for work and now it's your responsibility again. You could be furious. You could hold the posture of fury. You can feel like someone blew you off. You were supposed to go to lunch with someone, they blew you off, and you can feel totally disappointed. So this technique isn't just for grief, it's for any emotion that we're having a hard time dealing with in our body. And what it is just you're acknowledging, oh, what is my body doing? In an unfavorable emotion, the body's always constricting. No one's going to go, yes, oh my God, I feel betrayed right now. No one's going to do that because betrayal doesn't work like that. Betrayal works like this: grief, anger, jealousy, fury, disappointment. These are all constricted energy fields. And as you learn how to just help your body, you help the energy of your body, which means you help the health of your body. Is that making sense so far? So is this something we can use when it's just too much? We want to take the brain out and feel with the body versus feeling with the brain. I'm going to pause there for questions or comments, questions about what we just talked about, comments about maybe how you feel in that brief exercise, and anything in between. How many of you had something to write about for the drop? Something came to mind. Excellent. Questions? Yes, Kathy, go ahead.
So I know I've talked to you about this before, but I have two drops and they're related to the same event.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of bring on different feelings, even though they're the same. So
Yes,
that's part of this also.
totally. And I'm glad you're bringing that up because there really is never one single drop. One drop opens up all the drops. When which is why I go back to when I said, like, we usually don't deal with our grief until it's the death of someone, because socially, that's what we associate grief with: death. We don't totally always associate grief with all the other losses in our lives: loss of identity, loss of, all these pains. So that's why I say death of a loved one or death of somebody actually opens up all the drops and all the griefs that we probably didn't get to feel because we were busy surviving. We didn't get to feel probably because we thought maybe we were making a big deal out of something that wasn't. Who knows what the story we're telling ourselves. So yes, there's really very rarely a single drop. But there is a drop that comes to mind that starts to pop off all the other ones. Does that help? And then you can have two different postures. You can have two different energies for each drop. That's not always the same. Does that make sense, Kathy? Or is helpful?
Yeah, I mean, the drops are related. There was a diagnosis and then a death. So
Mhm.
it's like was like a gradual thing, I guess. So it was kind of a prolonged drop, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. And some come in an instant and some come over time. And in that time period of the diagnosis and the death, there were many drops along the way. The realization of life not returning to quote unquote normal, the rearranging of your life around somebody's illness. I mean, there's so many drops even in all of that. So that's what I mean by the drop isn't, it pops up open all the drops. The last time you socialize in person with people, the last time we have holidays, all these drops, drop after drop after drop. So the events, whatever comes to mind, is actually popping the lid off of all of them.
That,
Does
that
that
makes a lot of sense now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why when we're dealing with grief, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much more than just the event. It's so much more because it's all the losses along the way, all the slow things. Now, the opposite to that is all the things we gain too, but we're not talking about that yet. That comes way down the road in the process, if at all. Yeah, Kara, go ahead.
So that's interesting. So when you feel that grief and you get into that position and you're thinking of that one thing, but then you just feel overwhelmed, could it be these other drops that are all, is it a combination of all drops? And will this activity, do you have to acknowledge all the drops? Or they just, they're all there? And so this activity, you don't need different positions or different times for different drops. You just can, it's all together. You're treating all of it
It
together?
depends. It totally depends. The answer to that is no, and then it's also yes. So if one position leads you to think of another, then maybe the body wants you to go into that other. So the answer would be yes, it leads to many different. Or it could just represent all of them. So it doesn't matter unless it matters to when you're doing it,
Okay.
which you won't know until you do it often.
Okay. Thank you.
But there's no right or wrong about it.
Thank you.
That's a great question. And what this is, again, we're not changing the event because we all know we can't. That's why we're experiencing grief, because we can't change the event. That's the torture. That to me is quite literally the hell on earth that we experience. But we can change how it resides in our body. And that's the piece that needs to be moved in our bodies. And we know that different energies cause different illnesses in the body. We know this. This is old science coming back to be new science now, that the energy of grief absolutely affects our lungs. Absolutely affects our lungs. So if we're holding on to it, affects our whole body, but the lungs take the brunt of all of our grief, just like the liver takes the brunt of all of our anger. So anything we're not processing and feeling, processing means feeling, it's getting stored in certain organs. And because that's the way the body works, that's another whole topic. But you can look up traditional Chinese medicine, has some great references about what organs hold what emotions. And I think it's super important for people to understand that like a lot more is going on than just when we feel something. The body is using energy as a source of energy, but if we are holding on to grief, how can our lungs operate properly if it's processing more grief than it is oxygen or carbon dioxide, I should say. So like when we understand that the body is like taking on a whole other toll, that's another whole level. So this is all about just processing and moving it through the body. It's not even like letting it go. It's not about that. It does its own letting go. Just like when you breathe out, we're not ever, I mean, I'm never concerned about what I'm breathing out. How much carbon dioxide am I breathing out? How much toxicity? How much is I have no idea. I never think about it when I breathe out, but the body knows it's breathing out the proper amount to keep my body in balance. So the same principle with this is we don't need to know, did I release all my grief? Did I release that situation? Just know that you are moving what can be moved in that moment. Does that make sense? Yeah, Ken, go ahead. And then
Um,
Carrie, you're next. Go ahead.
the main drop and the first drop I didn't see coming. I had no idea it was coming. It happened in a couple of days. Boom, 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 boom. And then I went into like shock for a couple of days. And I said, okay, you got things you have to do. You got to talk to lawyers. You got to do things. And I got myself up and got myself going. But for the three losses that I've had, well, more, because the house was a loss too.
Mhm.
I've never really grieved. I mean, I've just never really grieved. I didn't grieve my dad. I just, okay, I gotta move on. Melissa, okay, she's okay now. She had to go through this process. My mom, I never grieved for me, or I never went to the grief. And, sometimes it'll just come back and say, we're still here. And, I feel it full body. You just feel it, your whole body. You just want to go and lay in bed. And you have to deal with that and say no. Or sometimes you just, for me, I just have to say, no, move it. To say, I
Mhm.
can't do this today. I can't, I have to move on. I can't. And it's hard because sometimes you have to accept the fact that nice things are happening. You have to move forward. But when those things are still tugging at you, so yeah, moving is a good thing when
Mhm.
you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, the brain, again, all of that is the brain's commentary. And the brain's commentary is a very dangerous playground, especially when it comes to grief. I mean, it's dangerous for anything. For, oh, yes, you can have more cookies. It's great. This feels good. It's dangerous. The brain can be quite dangerous in all its forms, which is why we kind of want to, as much as possible, particularly with grief, take the brain out because the brain's not going to give solutions. It's the energy. I mean, the brain will have, like, you used your brain to write the journaling, so like it's helpful when it's channeled properly. But when we're dealing with energy of, I mean, I could, like I said, I could pick any emotion. I could pick disappointment. I could pick betrayal, fury, shame, guilt, grief, anger. I mean, there's a plethora of information, unfavorable energies, and they're all moving and residing in our bodies. And when we identify it as just an energy that's moving in our body, not attached to an event, then we can move the energy. Every time we think back to the event, the brain, it's kind of like we start over. So the idea of moving forward and moving on and getting over it, those are the most infuriating things to hold ourselves to. And it's even more infuriating when other people, or when we feel like other people are holding us to it. That's a whole other topic. That's the way we're socialized. That's what we do, whatever. But we have to be mindful of not telling ourselves, I've got to get past this. I got to let this go. I've got to move forward. Like, we know that. That's a bit bullying. It's a bully voice that we use on ourselves. Except when we do say, oh my gosh, I can't do this today. I've got to move. It depends. It depends on how helpful or not we can be to ourselves. Does that make sense to everyone? Kara, you were going to say something?
Yeah, this exercise that we just did, is this something, is it like a recommend, I mean, just do it whenever you feel like it, or a daily thing, or what, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't like to give things like do it daily because I feel like
Yeah.
we all have like 9,000 things we're supposed to do daily, so I don't want to add it as another checklist. I know that's how I am, like, make sure I drink enough water, make sure I do my yoga, make sure I
Okay.
journal, make sure I do all the thing, right? And then like we get ourselves so overwhelmed with like, we don't
Schedule.
do nine out of 10 of them. So I don't want to put it in a context of like, make sure you do this because it's one more thing to do. However, this is it's a helpful tool to have in your pocket when nothing else is working. It's really helpful if you share it with someone else. What I'm learning is that we really do the things we share with other people versus the things, like if you share how journaling is really good for you with other people, I'm not saying tell other people they should do it, but when you share what you do with people, then you actually tend to do it more. So you can teach this to someone or explain it to someone, which will actually help you to access this ability. But I know this, I teach this, I live, eat, breathe, and sleep all of this, and I don't do it daily. Do you know?
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
so yeah. So use it when it dawns on you.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly. And you can also use it the opposite too. When you're feeling joyous, nobody ever asks ourselves, like, gosh, why am I so happy today? We don't ask ourselves that, which is interesting, but we could do it the opposite too. Gosh, I'm posturing joy, I'm posturing excitement to move that through the body and hold that too. We could do the opposite. It's just the unfavorable emotions don't get processed usually. Yeah, Renee, I'm so glad to see you here, Renee. Renee is from my original days of when I used to travel to people's houses to do readings.
That's
Yes,
right.
it's beautiful to see you.
Thank you. You too. So my event happened, it's almost a year ago, but 8 months after the event, I myself got deathly sick.
Mm.
I ended up with diverticulitis, had to have a major operation, was out of my house, staying with my sister for 4 months, basically. So I'm wondering if the event brought on my health crisis so I could get rid of some of that grief, because I had to concentrate on myself for those 4 months to get myself, stronger, not only physically, but emotionally. So I'm just wondering if that's like I don't know, my energy kind of helping me out, so to speak.
Totally. And I'm so glad you're even asking this because it sounds almost crazy to say, wow, my health crisis actually saved me or forced me to deal with me, which is what personal health crises often do, which is why I say grief has that potential for the most transformation to happen because it forces us to look because we can't function when we're deep in the middle of grief from anything. The energy of grief grabs us. It's like by the throat. I always feel like it's like grabbing me by the throat, like, oh, I got you now. Like you're going to deal with this now.
And yes, and you tend to make bad decisions when you're in that state of grief. You do things you wouldn't normally do just because you just don't know where you belong anymore. Now that that person has disappeared from your life and you're so far away from family, the first thing you think of, okay, well, do I move? Do I sell my house? Do I buy another? It was just overwhelming.
Yep.
I don't know if the grief made me sick or if it was just brewing, and because I was at such a low energy, it just festered and boom, in this health crisis.
Yep. And that's why I say it's not linear because we don't know. Chicken or the egg, we don't know.
Right.
It's like that's why I say it's like a spiral where we don't know what came first, but one feeds off the next. And ultimately it doesn't matter which one came first because here we are.
Mm-hmm.
We are with
Right.
it. Then when we apply presence, meaning awareness, doing what you're all doing now, trying to look at grief, deal with grief, do anything to figure it out, it starts bringing up to the conscious level, like, oh, those decisions I did make, or, it starts putting things in context, which is why I say that's when grief causes the most authentic transformation, because it's almost like we can't fake it anymore.
Mm.
And not faking it in life is the best place to come from because it's the most authentic self versus us being all, we do the niceties in life, right? Like, oh no, that's fine, that's okay, I'd be happy to host, I don't know, Christmas for 90 people. And then, we do these nice things we think we should out of obligation. Then we're like, mother of God, what the hell? Like, why did I do this? And so, like, years and years and years of doing things like that, grief stops it. Grief all of a sudden is like, I can't do it. I don't care. I don't care about Christmas. I don't care about family right now. It levels us, but it
Mhm.
levels us to a place where we are more authentically responding. We hope. We hope.
Right, right.
And then once we're restored to our most authentic self without saying, oh my God, I'm so bad for this, I'm so whatever, then we're now in an authentic energy field. So that's that transformation piece I'm talking about. It's like, oh no, I was forced to ask for help. Health
Mm.
crises, usually happen to those who will not and cannot ask for help. And then it's sort of, the universe is sort of like, all right, this is where we're going with this. We're going to make sure you receive help.
Right.
So it's that forced outcome. And this is
And I
just the drop. There's
Yeah, I
9 more
think
to go.
in a better place that I can now, I don't know if analyze is the right word, but just go through the grief and that little writing exercise that you had us do.
Mhm.
It was very interesting because I'd never thought about any of what I wrote down, but
Mm,
it just came out,
yeah.
and when I go back and look at it, it's like, yeah, those were all the feelings I had, and dealt with some of them properly and others not so well.
Mhm.
So now I can, hopefully make a better educated decision on things in my life.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear it, that it just takes a little too.
Mm,
That's the other thing with grief, with any emotion. It just takes a little time. I mean, we didn't spend days, weeks, years, months in it. It was 15 minutes, maybe.
mhm,
That's the other thing when we sit down. That's why this is a monthly thing, just to sit down and be with the grief. And every month it'll be different, something different or not, who knows, but it might not always be the same thing that's in your face about grief.
right.
It's just about
Thank
giving
you.
time for yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. I'm so glad to see you back,
Yes.
literally. Anyone else have an observation or anything they want to share before we kind of close up? Yeah, go ahead, Eileen. Don't forget to unmute. I don't know if you're talking, but you're muted. Oh. 5 years later into Zoom and we still forget to unmute ourselves. Go ahead.
I got so upset I couldn't even write anything. I sat here playing with my pen and then just getting mad at myself.
So then your grief is leading you into the emotion of anger, which it does. That's common. And so being with the anger and allowing yourself to be with the anger, which sounds so obnoxious. Do you know what I mean? Like, I recognize that the words of like, be with your anger, it makes you more angry, right? I mean, that does to me. But that's your thing of like grief. Anger is always sadness that's been repressed, by the way, for everyone. That's what the energy of anger is. It's like, oh, we can't touch the core
Well,
grief, the sadness, so we go into anger. But then feel that, then posture what anger feels like to you and let the body process it and feel it.
I got mad at the jump because I'm like, okay, which drop? I've had so many, I don't know which one to pick.
Mm-hmm.
And then that pissed me off, you know?
Yep. And that's the brain. Again, the brain, we need the brain to kind of prime the pump, but then the anger is all of it. The anger that you don't have to name which one it is. It's the anger of all of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I, I question what the point is if I'm just gonna get mad and,
Well, you're mad anyway. So the point is to acknowledge the mad that's there and handle the madness in the moment, because these energies, they're not like going away when we're like at work or with friends. This is what, like, we're built the foundation of ourselves. So that's going back to like that inauthentic, like I'm pissed off all the time, but I don't know what the point is to feel the pissed off. It's so that you don't feel pissed off all the time. It's to move that energy and not cover over it. And anger's a good one, because the energy of anger comes out sideways, comes out at the wrong people, the wrong times, in the wrong ways. And I say wrong, not that there's a right and a wrong, but in a way that, like, if we weren't operating from anger and we kind of had a sense of like inner, I'll use the word peace for lack of a better word in this moment. When you're on hold for a customer service thing and they're putting you on hold and you're on hold for like 15 minutes and the anger's brewing, and then the person comes back on the phone and they're like, I'm sorry, I can't do anything. And then you just totally like erupt and go explode. And I've laughed that a lot of you are smiling because I know you all well. And like, as humans, like, we're good people, right? We don't want to do harm to people, except for that customer service woman or man that you're just like, blah, all the anger is coming out on that person. So that's what I mean by in the wrong ways. Like, the real human in us probably is not an erupting maniac, right? But then it does show up. It shows up if we're being real and honest. Or the opposite is, oh, okay, that's fine. Thank you. No problem. We shrink and we oblige. It's one or the other.
oh, it's not me.
So the anger is there, and we want to be able to express the anger in ways that feels good for ourselves. Because I know when I erupt on the customer service person, as maniacal as I am in the moment, when I hang up, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so mortified. Like, I'm such an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't like that. I don't like when I get myself to that space. So that's what I mean by the wrong way. So the point is to feel it, but it's to feel it as a feeling and a sensation versus repeating the story to ourselves, because we cannot change the story, the event. We cannot change the drop. It's already happened. That's the part that our system can't stand. And there's a lingering energy field from that event. That's what we're handling with these exercises, which over time keeps the event as it is, but doesn't affect the body mind as deeply over time. And in fact, it starts to get transmuted and transformed into something else, which is more self-empowering, self-authenticity, moves it into another direction that feels more in alignment with like who you really are or who you really want to be. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. And it's not to be like, well, once you feel it, everything's going to be better. I am not saying that. I am not like sugarcoating. Like I said in the beginning, I know the power grief has for transforming. I'm not asking for it. I am never, ever going to say, gosh, I can't wait for something to really level me so that I level up. No, nobody in their right mind would say that. And that's what does happen. What's important after this is moving the body a little bit. So whether you just do like after we hang up together, whether you do like a whole, like maybe 5 rounds of your grief posture and then the opposite, or go for a walk, or even just like, I was gonna say hitting yourself, but no, not hitting yourself, but like pounding on your chest or your legs, wherever you feel like you need movement, bring movement to the body. And you'll see, you'll come up with something. Maybe you want to do 10 jumping jacks, maybe you just want to do arm raises. I mean, it'll be different, but listen to the body, what kind of movement it needs and wants. And then give it that, maybe 3 minutes. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be like an hour's exercise unless you need an hour's exercise. So that's important after this when we log off. Bring some sort of movement. Also, lots of water, just because if you're bringing movement, we're stirring up energy and we want the energy to flow properly. Bringing in water not only helps the physical body, but water is flow. So we want to give the body as much things that cause it to flow. Water's the best because technically alcohol flows too, but not the best. Not the best. Sometimes feels fun, but not the best, especially in the morning. And I say that tongue in cheek, but I'm also real. And then just making time and space to do this, to sit with this. If you're stuck on it later, which I've heard people say, like, I don't know if I want to do another workshop because I couldn't stop thinking about it all day. That's when I would say to you, no more thinking about it, but absolutely getting into your body, doing the body of it, doing the posture, doing the opposite, writing it, but feeling it in the body. These are the ways to move the energy of it. And then always coming to find a midpoint. The midpoint between the grief and the opposite, that's the present moment. So when we find that midpoint posture, that's the right here, right now, which I didn't call attention to it, but every single one of you sat up straighter, looked more like directly into the camera when I said find the midpoint. And if you want to watch the recording after, you can notice that, like, you were all present, more present in the moment. And if you have any questions that come up or any residuals, you can email me. It's either hello@deborahhanlon.com or Deborah@deborahhanlon.com. I'm the only one that's reading all of them anyway right now. So you can give feedback, or if you feel like you need more processing time with it, you can kick an email off to me. And tonight is meditation, so hopefully I'll see you tonight for meditation. And tomorrow night for members, well, non-members, you can sign up too, is Mediumship Development Circle tomorrow night. And I think that's all we have this week. So thank you all for joining in this morning. And don't forget to reach out if you're feeling stuck. Yeah, Kara, go ahead.
Deborah, real quick, I had trouble getting in today this morning, but I was using the link that was sent to me last week. I had an updated list, and I'm really bad about links. I can't seem to either find them but anyway, so the last link that I had from your assistant wouldn't let me in. And
Yeah.
so then I found your email and then that let me in. So was it a
Yeah.
different link now?
This was entirely, I know the links can get confusing too. This is entirely my fault because the April 27th event we didn't hold, so that link was out there. We were supposed to have one last week, but I rescheduled April 27th to this week. So we canceled last week. So there were 3 links out there for today, so it was super confusing.
Is
You're
there,
not the only one.
okay, so I thought do we use the same link for this group every time? Is it a different link every week?
It's a different
Every
link
month?
every week. Yes, every month. Yep.
Oh,
The
I
same
did
link
hear-
is for meditation for members. The reason for that is because you don't have to be a member to have this. So if I have the same link every month, people who signed up and paid for it last month would then have the link for this month, even though they didn't pay for
Oh.
it. So
Oh,
it has to
now,
be a
okay.
different link. Yeah.
So which links are all the same and which ones?
I know. Meditation is the same, even though it's in the same kind of problem. I don't really advertise for people to sign up weekly on a meditation, so it doesn't matter. So the meditation link is the same every week. And I can't remember if membership chat, I believe, is the same link every month.
Okay. And the
Yeah.
rest of them you'll send us right before the event? You'll send us the new link each time?
Terry, yes, anyone that other people can sign up for, Terry sends a link out because people are signing up for it.
Okay.
And then she'll send it to members as well.
And so I should look for that link, what, the day before or a couple
Yes.
of okay.
Yeah,
All right,
or just
my mistake. I'm just not good with all this link and technical stuff. So I miss out groups, but I'm getting there.
well, this is
And-
totally my fault because I had so many, I completely forgot that there would be different links and
It's okay. It's
that was
okay.
on, yeah.
I thought maybe the universe was telling me I shouldn't be here today. So I was just gonna go ahead, go do something else. So I was just going to do something else. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll try one more time. And then I found your email. So
I'm so
anyway.
glad. See, you're
And
supposed to be
I
here.
did figure out the camera issue. Apparently I was in the other Zoom. So apparently if you're in
Oh.
one Zoom session, your camera won't work in another one. So I don't know if the person that couldn't get their camera to work had the same issue, but that was my problem. As soon
Ah,
as I left the April 27th Zoom, my camera was able to work over here. Just so you know for future reference.
that's good to know. Thank you, Eileen. Yeah.
I'm glad
So
I'm the
now we
only-
had grief, but now we're like annoyance because these freaking links. Trust me, I don't like it either.
I'm glad
And
to hear
I-
Eileen, thank you. I'm glad somebody else has some kind of technical difficulty besides me. I thought it was just me, but it can get complicated.
It's super complicated, especially this time when there was 3 potential links to have used for it for sure. And then Kathy, I saw that you had joined, so it says Kathy Ann, and I have another member who's Kathy Ann, so I'm texting her saying, "Hey, I sent you the link." She's like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Didn't you try to sign up for meditation? I mean, for grief?" And she's like, "No, I didn't this morning." So I'm like, "Oh, never mind." And she's like, "There's another Kathy." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
And the Ann is my part of my last name. So
Oh, see, and I just automatically thought it was her who goes by Kathy Ann. So I was
part
texting her like, "Hey, I got you. I got you." She's like, "What are you talking about? Are you all right? What's going on?" Wrong Kathy. She's like, "There's another Kathy, Deb." I'm like, "You're right. She's here. Have a great Sunday." Um, Any
Thank you.
other, yes, so we're always looking to improve it, which by the way, for members, if you should have gotten an email for the directory. So to fill that out with your name, your email, your address, your birthday, anything you don't want to include, you don't have to include, just so we could build up a directory so other people can get in touch with people if they need to and want to. So that's there, an email went out about that. I'm sure we'll send it out several times, but just letting members know about that. And any other questions, you can all email me, hello@Deborah Hanlon, or Deborah@Deborah Hanlon, or some of you have my text. So whatever's easier for any of you to connect with me, do that. And have a great Sunday. And hopefully I'll see you tonight. And don't forget to take yourselves off of mute to say good day to everyone.
Good day.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody. Have a good
everyone.
day.
Bye.
I
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.